To begin, we would like to start by thanking all of our partners. Wide array of partners that we've worked with over the years that have enabled us to successfully create this agricultural franchise model. Without them, it would not be possible. Ba-awo. Those are the words that this gentleman, Yahuza Amadou, yells every time I come into his village. In the language of northern Nigeria, Hausa, that means no more hunger, no more hunger. The reason why Yahuza says that is because for the last 3 years, he's been a member of Babban Gona. And in those 3 years, Yahuza, his wife, and his children have not had to suffer the usual hunger season that is very prevalent in the region of the country that they are in. In the last 3 years, as members of Babban Gona, they've been able to access the capital needed to invest in their farms, get very good yields, and access markets that are able to get them great prices. This has enabled Yahuza to transition from really thinking about only the present to thinking about the future and enabling his dreams to come true. He's enabled his first dream, which is to buy cows, to come true, enabling him to diversify from being a crop farmer to also being a livestock farmer. So fundamentally, what we do at Babban Gona is we make smallholder farmers richer. We do this by first enabling them to attain yields that are up to 500% higher than the national average, attain prices for their products that are up to 37% higher than what they can achieve themselves, translating to increase in incomes up to 600%. Now, before we discuss how we do this, we need to understand why we do this. And to understand that, we need to answer this question. How did the terrorist group Boko-Haram deploy dozens of personnel to kidnap 300 young schoolgirls in Chibok? The reality is this was a massive logistical effort. And the havoc that Boko-Haram has been able to cause across northern Nigeria over the last several years has grown in intensity because they have the ability to mobilize an incredible amount of individuals, currently estimated at over 9,000 individuals. And they've been able to do this because the truth is, as oxygen is to a fire, so are unemployed youth to insurgencies. And in Nigeria today, we have a lot of unemployed youth. In the last 20 years, about 20 million youth entered the workforce. And as can be seen here in Nigeria's demographic curve, we have a very young population of 19. These 20 million youth that entered the workforce in the last 20 years triggered a dramatic rise in our general unemployment rate and youth unemployment rate. Now, with youth unemployment estimated over 60%. This has triggered not one, not two, but 3 different insurgencies, beginning with the Niger Delta crisis in the south, the Jos crisis in the center, and Boko Haram, most recently in the northern part of Nigeria. And what keeps us motivated is the reality that in the next 20 years, 4 times the number of youth, 18 million people, the population of Germany, will be entering the Nigerian workforce. So what we do to address this is within Babban Gona, we help smallholder farmers unlock the 2 key assets they have to unlock significant income. Those assets are land and their hard work. And we do this through a model we've developed called an agricultural franchise, where we effectively bring economies of scale to smallholder farmers. The way an agricultural franchise works is that we go out and we identify an individual, a person that we believe has the skill sets to be a great leader of a grassroots level farmer organization, we call a trust group. And to that individual, we provide them the requisite skills to form that franchise made up of smallholder farmer members. And once formed to that franchise, we deploy 4 services. The first is training on how to form the organization, run it effectively and efficiently. Secondly, training on how the members can migrate from a subsistence mindset to a commercial mindset, truly thinking about their farms as businesses. And then finally, training on how to become better farmers. The second service, which we're here to talk about in more depth today, is credit. We recognize that the ability to deliver credit to smallholder farmers was a very critical issue. And so we actually, before we kicked off Babban Gona, we actually spent 2 years thinking deeply about the issues around deploying credit to smallholder farmers, the risks associated with it, and coming up with a risk mitigation model that effectively de-risked smallholder farmers, which we call our 7 levels of risk mitigation. Once we deploy the credit, that credit comes 100% in kind through a series of products and services as agricultural inputs. And this really spans the breadth from farm analysis, really understanding the needs of that farmer, looking at their soil health, looking at pest pressures, et cetera, and then deploying those inputs, everything from high-quality seeds and other agricultural inputs to individuals that visit the farm and provide appropriate oversight and guidance, all the way down to harvest services, providing everything from the needle and thread that they might need. And finally, good markets. Providing a platform where the farmers are able to effectively deposit their grains, we collateralize that, get them a loan against that, and help them access good markets. Now, let's begin by understanding the individual that we're trying to provide credit to. So this is a typical young smallholder farmer in the region that we work with. His name is Yusuf. And Yusuf, really, he has no land title. He has no formal ID. He has limited cash. He doesn't actually have a phone he owns himself. His father has one that he gets to use every once in a while. He has no financial history and no formal address. So, if you want to finance Yusuf, what can you expect as your repayment rate? With the systems that we've developed, we've been able to create a system where we can finance individuals like Yusuf, and today we're running at a 99.9% repayment rate. As mentioned, getting them yields up to 500% national average, and through a system that is highly scalable, which we've scaled about 100-fold in the last 36 months. So before we go into the risk mitigation, let's understand what Yusuf's financing needs are. So a smallholder farmer in Nigeria typically needs about $1,000 per hectare, typically needs that for about 18 months and can sustain about an 18% APR interest rate. The facility would need to come in 2 buckets, about 50% at planting, another 50% at harvest, helping them meet some of their cash crunch challenges. And the main risks associated with lending to these individuals really fall under 3 buckets. The first bucket is willful default. So the reality is in the environments that we work in, there's limited recourse for organizations to take in the event of a willful default. And so how to deal with these issues and ensure that you provide the right incentive structure is very, very critical. Because the reality is smallholder farmer can wake up in the morning and just say, I'm not paying you back. and it does happen quite often. The second is diversion of funds. So the reality is the population that we are financing does not have a significant amount of capital, and they have a lot of needs: school fees, sick relatives, a lot of very pressing needs. And the reality is, often what you find is that those pressures cause them to divert funds that are provided for business activity to these very important needs, but unfortunately needs that are unable to provide them the necessary returns to meet their obligations. And then the third is low productivity. And low productivity typically falls into two buckets. The first is low productivity due to farmer error. So farmers' inability to follow best practices to optimize their yields. And then the second is acts of God. So effects that are really out of the hands of the farmer, typically droughts, floods, pest disease, etc., etc. So, recognizing these three key risks, how do we de-risk these smallholder farmers? So, looking at our 7 levels of risk mitigation. The first level of risk mitigation is one that I'm sure many of you know quite well. So, it's very effectively in microfinance across the world, and that is peer pressure. And it still applies the same way to smallholder farmers. The second is an economic incentive. So recognizing that it's important when dealing with this population that you provide more of a carrot than a stick, because your stick options are, quite frankly, very limited, if non-existent, due to the costs associated, et cetera, you want to ensure that you're financing a model that can provide them with the support that you provide, a strong enough economic incentive that they can earn enough money that they want to come back. It sounds simple, but it's a very critical part of your design on determining what you want to finance. The third are traditional guarantees that many of you are familiar with. They can be provided by multiple organizations that help to provide you that cover. And the fourth, and one of the ones we consider the most important, is recognizing that the crop that you're financing is the collateral. Smallholder farmers do not have access to traditional collateral, land titles, assets, vehicles, etc. So in reality, your financing model needs to rely on the crop that you're financing to be that collateral. And you have to ensure you have a system in place that is able to ensure that that collateral is in good stead. The fifth is ensuring that you're able to mitigate for diversion of funds by providing in-kind lending only, amongst a series of other systems as well. The sixth, to manage the risk of farmer error, is to ensure that you finance a standard system, a system that you're very confident that your customer is going to be able to be successful at. And success, as I said, is very simple. It's ensuring that you do the right thing, the right way, at the right time. And ensuring that the agricultural enterprise that you're financing has systems in place that ensure that the farmer is able to follow that pattern. I should mention that this is a very critical piece because it ensures, for us in particular, we've looked at key crops and developed key systems that will enable the farmers, as long as they follow a very set regiment, they're able to get very high yields. I think we're talking about some of our farmers, the national average in Nigeria for maize is about 1.5 tons per hectare. Our top performing farmers are getting yields of 7.5, 8 tons per hectare. Then the seventh is to mitigate against acts of God. And for this, the primary risk mitigation mechanism that we leverage is weather index insurance. We've developed the first in Nigeria, and we believe actually the first in West Africa, weather index insurance product that ensures that our farmers are able to have the necessary protection against climate change. Now the impact. The impact is quite clear. We've been able to create profitable small commercial farmers, getting yield, as mentioned, up to 5 times or higher than the national average. On the left here, you see a typical Babban Gona member's farm. On the right, literally, this picture was taken the same day across the street from this farm, and you see pretty much an average field that you can see of a smallholder farmer and maize farmer across the region. And I think the community that we operate in, I think the UNDP did a survey that showed that the average yields in this community back in 2005 was somewhere around 0.8 tons per hectare. Here you can see one of our team members in one of our farmers' fields. And this is one of my favorite pictures. And something that you do not see very often in smallholder farmers' fields. The reality is when you see a cob of maize that is that heavy that it can't stand up, you know that field's going to hit over 6 tons per hectare. This particular field in 2013 hit 6.2 tons per hectare, and in 2014 this same field hit about 7.5 tons per hectare. In closing, and looking at the impact, we can look at Hanatu Samaila, one of our Babban Gona farmers. On 1.1 hectares, she was able to obtain a net income of about $1,800 net of the credit that we provided to her, and has also begun to look to the future and thinking about how she can achieve her dreams. And her dream is to provide a future for her children. Today, we have 2,000 Hanatus. We expect to have 1 million Hanatus by 2025. That will enable 5 million people, our farmers and their children, to achieve their dreams. Thank you very much for your time. We're Babban Gona, and we grow dreams.